just like to say a few words. First, welcome. My name is Eugenie Samus. I'm the Executive Secretary of AESA. It has been really a pleasure for me to organize this community awareness event for HALO. And HALO stands for Hazardous Area Life Support Organization, but abbreviated as HALO. It's a non-governmental, non-profit organization based in United Kingdom. I strongly believe in their mission, which is very near and dear to my heart because it's about saving lives. And I hope what you're about to hear and learn will somehow touch your heart as well. I want to extend my sincere gratitude and thanks to Andrew Lyons, who is the HALO USA Vice President in Washington, D.C., and Kurt Chesko, who is the HALO VP Vice President at San Francisco, for their continued support and fundraising efforts over many years in order to assure the continuation of HALO work at Karabagh. There are detailed information that our speakers brought from HALO at the table, and there are also copies of an article that Onik Grigorian wrote, and it appeared on ARPA, ARPA magazine on April 4th, 2011. It's titled Clearing Mines and Saving Lives in Karabagh. Lastly, I think we have a few members from the Artsakh Development Group here, which is, they are a non-profit organization that are engaged in raising awareness in the United States about Artsakh through social and educational activities. So now a few words about Edwina Lebbie, who is our speaker. Edwina joined HALO in April of 2010 as program coordinator. She supports HALO's domestic program and donor development team in the United States from the Washington, D.C. office. She has worked on HALO programs in Cambodia, Angola, and Nagorno Karabakh, where she became Level 2 Explosive Ordnance Disposal Technician. Ms. Lebbie is native of Sierra Leone, that is in Western Africa, but she was young when they immigrated to the US, so she's a naturalized citizen like many of us in the United States. She's a Georgetown graduate, and where she studied history, French, and African politics, and she's also studied language and culture and politics of Tanzania and Senegal. Pleasure, please. Podium is yours.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. Okay, I'm going to give a quick program overview of our work in Nagorno Karabakh, and if you have questions, I encourage you to wait till the end, and we can discuss everything. I'll try to answer every question you have, and we can move on from there. The HALO Trust. Worldwide, we're the first and largest humanitarian landmine clearance organization. We started in Afghanistan in 1988. Currently, we have over 8,000 staff worldwide, and that is supported by about 35 expatriate staff in the field, with 15 headquarters staff in Scotland and 5, including myself, based in the US. Our program in Karabagh started in 2000. This photo shows here a capacity of 210 demining staff, supported by just 1 expatriate staff. So last year we had 3 donors, and I'll talk more about our funding situation this year, but the picture last year was 210, 1 expatriate staff, and 3 donors. Now, many of you know the history of Nagorno Karabakh, but the maps here show the impact of the war. On the left, you'll see a map that shows the mine situation in Karabagh. The green dots are areas that were minefields. However, they've been cleared by HALO. The red dots are areas that we know about and haven't cleared yet. And the blue dots are areas that are currently being cleared. If you look at the map, you'll notice the majority of the minefields are situated along the border with Azerbaijan. That's because the minefields were laid towards the latter stages of the war when the fighting was less fluid. Okay, great. We'll see if this will go all the way. It doesn't. Sorry, but distance. The minefields were laid towards the latter stages of the war when the fighting was less fluid and both sides had dug into their positions. Both sides laid mines, and for the most part, they were all Soviet-made PMN2 series, and on the anti-tank mine side, there were TM series, which are more or less minimal metal or plastic anti-tank mines. The map on the right shows the situation of cluster strikes, cluster bomb strikes. Now, those were carried out predominantly by the Azeri Air Force. They were the only ones with an Air Force, and they were the only ones that could use that means of attack. So again, the green are areas where we've cleared. The red are areas where we know of and are yet to be cleared, and the blue are areas where we're currently working. Compare that to the minefield situation. You'll see the cluster bomb strikes are more concentrated around areas. They're around major towns, so it's around Stepanakert, it's around Martuni, it's around Shushi, and definitely around the Lachin corridor. So it's more dispersed than the minefields, and with cluster bombs, they have a very low success rate. So when they land, they effectively become landmines when they're not exploded. Okay, now accidents in Karabakh. There is an overall decreasing trend. However, the photos right here display exactly the problem that we're facing. A lot of the minefields and cluster bomb strikes are on prime agricultural land. So you see the two photos are at the top are tractors where farmers have tried to plow their land and hit an anti-tank mine, and as such, if they don't lose their life or limb, they've lost their livelihood, they've lost their tractor. On the bottom photos shows the types of accidents that we most commonly see. The man on the lower left, he has his lower leg amputated, and that's usually, those are the usual casualties that we see. The boy, that accident happened in December 2010, and in his case, he found a cluster bomb. It was a round ball. He found a cluster bomb, and he tried to open it with an axe. So he hit it with an axe, and he's very lucky to have actually survived it because the cluster bomb only partially detonated. So it didn't fully explode, which is why he's still here. And if it did, we wouldn't have a picture of him. Now, HALO does mine clearance, among other things, in Karabagh. The bread and butter of our operation is something that we call one man, one lane. We see in the photo up there with the red sticks. So every deminer is responsible for a 1 meter wide lane, and they very carefully go over that lane with the metal detector. If they get a signal, they'll stop and excavate it, and if they find something, we'll destroy the mine right there in the ground. We don't take it out, we don't do anything with it, we verify that it is a mine or a cluster bomb, and we destroy it right there. Now, we also use a large loop detector, which we use to detect anti-tank mines. And against this similar process, the team goes over the ground. When they find a signal, they'll excavate that signal and destroy whatever ammunition they find. But I mentioned that we also have plastic mines in Nagorno Karabakh, which of course you can't use any kind of metal detector to detect plastic. So we've come up with, it's a simple but very useful and very labor-intensive procedure, which we call prodding, where you'll see the photo at the bottom. The deminer essentially prods the ground with a metal stick, and we've developed the standard operating procedure whereby if there's an object in the ground, he'll have 4 points to hit that object, so there's no way he'll miss it. And it's also designed in a way that if it is an actual anti-tank mine, it will not hit the top, it will hit 4 points before it hits the top. So when there's at the first point where he hits, it could be a rock, it could be a sardine can, it could be an anti-tank mine, but he'll investigate it, and we have 4 opportunities to find something before he detonates it. And the last asset that we use to clear mines is mechanical assets, which are armored vehicles that we use on land that is either too dangerous to actually have people demining, or it's too difficult. So in really rocky areas or areas that are really, really dangerous. And those, we deploy the mechanical assets first and eventually follow those with manual deminers. And with cluster bomb strikes, it's essentially the same. However, with cluster bombs, we only use the large loop detectors, and those are calibrated to really detect large pieces of metal deep in the ground. And once an object is found, it's isolated, which you see in the photo on the bottom, and a deminer and the section commander will come back and destroy it right there in the ground. Now, cluster bombs, they've already been fired, so they've already gone through the arming mechanism, and it's highly unstable. You cannot really touch it or move it. You don't know exactly what stage it's in. Now, before we start demining, we do what we call survey. So we go out into communities, we talk to people and ask them where they've had accidents before, what areas they know about that's being dangerous, or what areas they question. And with that information, we create polygons around where we believe is a suspected area. And with that information, we actually deploy our assets right down to the exact area that's mined or that's potentially mined. We don't just demine randomly. We draw an exact map and we try to get as close to the hazardous area as possible. That way we save resources, we save time, and we actually target the problem. And next to survey, we do explosive ordnance disposal. Now, I tell people the war in Karabagh, it was a very short war and a very small area of space. However, there was a huge amount of ordnance that was used. There's a huge amount of ordnance that's still on the ground, that's still also in the ground, and it's preventing people from just carrying on farming or building new houses or building development projects such as roads, wells, and so on. So we have a team that responds to what we call EOD call-outs. Communities call us and they say, oh, we found grenades, we found some mortars, we found some projectiles in so-and-so's garden. Can you come in and take it out so we can continue with planting or building the road or whatever project they were going on with? So those teams go in those communities and they safely remove the items that can be moved, and the ones that cannot be moved, we destroy them right there. And the last thing we do in Karabakh is called mine risk education. Now, while we're working in communities, we go into schools and we tell children, because they're the ones that are most likely going to find those explosive items first. They're the ones that are curious, they're the ones that will see something shiny and want to go pick it up. So we tell them, the kinds of materials that are in their neighborhoods or around their schools, around their homes, and what to do if they find such things, how to go back home, who to contact, and we just tell them and make them aware of the problem that's in their areas and what to do about it. Now, this isn't mine clearance. We believe the best way to get rid of the problem is to actually go in and take those items out. However, we think educating people about things that they're dealing with and the things that they're living with is one step closer to getting the job done. Now, HALO started in Karabakh in 2000, so we've been there for 11 years now. This is our 11th year. And since then, we've cleared close to, we've cleared over 21 hectares of land, and that's going to be with battle area clearance. So those are cluster bombs. And in terms of minefield area, we've cleared 4,169 hectares of land. Now that is, in terms of minefield, we're about 89% of the way done with Karabakh. And in terms of cluster bomb, that's only 70% of the way to being completely done. So for us, we've had great progress over the past 10 years, and you can almost see the finish line. However, there's still several hurdles that we have to go through. And in terms of accidents, the general trend is decreasing. So from 2004 to 2011, there's a significant reduction in accidents. However, there had been 2 spikes in 1999 and 2004, the 2 spikes that you see there. And the reason for those 2 is the global prices of wheat increased. So with increased prices, farmers were more willing to engage in riskier behaviors. So they started plowing fields where they hadn't plowed before because they knew it was mined. However, if you can make more money, you're going to try to make more money, and as such, there are more accidents. Now, if that happens again in the future, if we have, if prices go up again, we don't think there's going to be such an increase, a direct correlation in the amount of accidents, because we have cleared the majority of anti-tank minefields in Karabagh. However, it's still, until the job is done, it's still a risk that people are gonna face. And this graph shows the amount of items that we found in the past 11 years. So with anti-tank and anti-personnel landmines, it's been over 10,000. With cluster bombs, it's 10,787. So that's just the amounts that we found. So imagine of all the amounts that were used, more than 10,000 didn't go off, and there's still 30% remaining for us to find. And other UXO means unexploded ordnance. So those are straight bullets, grenades, projectiles, mortars, all kinds of other ammunition that are in Karabakh that we're finding and are still, we have ways to go in finding the rest. And funding. Now, for the past 4 years, we noticed a decreasing trend in funding. In the past, we've been funded by the Julia Burke Foundation, which is the purple. Now, I should note that the Julia Burke Foundation, they're a private American foundation. It's a couple, Jerry and Marilyn Burke, that are based in California. They visited our program in 2007 in Karabakh and were so touched by the people they decided to fund us. So they committed at first to $1 million for 3 years. And again, these are not Armenians. And that ended in 2011, but that ended in 2010. And in 2011, they recommitted again to giving us another $300,000. So because of them, we are able to do mine clearance and cluster bomb clearance in the green areas around Karabakh. Our other major donor is USAID. Now, because of the political situation, USAID only funds mine clearance work in traditional Karabakh. Their money, we cannot use their money to fund programs within the green areas. So with USAID, and they've been with us since 2000, we've been able to do a lot of work in traditional Karabakh, which is the majority of the territory itself. We've also had funding from the green bloc. It's the Netherlands. So that's the Dutch government, and the red, is DFID, which is the British Department for International Development. The Dutch stopped funding us in 2009, and British funding ran out in January 2011. The reason for that is just changes in their foreign policy. They've decided to change their international development funding to areas where they prioritize. For the Dutch, it's the Great Lakes region in Africa, and for the Brits, the Caucasus region, especially Karabakh, is no longer a priority for them. So for us, we were apolitical, we're non-religious, and we don't have biases either way. However, governments do, and we have to follow their foreign policy. So we believe that the future of Karabakh, for us to actually reach the finish line sooner, it's going to have to come from more people like the Julia Burke Foundation and more Armenians to actually get involved. And with private money, we can actually clear not just traditional, but also all of Karabakh. Now, the effect of funding, our loss of funding earlier this year, is this picture right here. So in January, we had to make redundant, or we had to fire close to 60 deminers. Now, those are all, we only have one expatriate staff in Karabakh, so the rest, all those 60 were actual deminers. They're actual Karabakhis with Karabakhi families, and HALO is one of the largest employers in Karabakh, so it's a huge blow to the economy, it's a huge blow to the locals living in Karabakh. And you add that to the fact that it's now going to take us longer to actually clear the land, and people are going to continue to have accidents. It just has rippling effects on everything. But I also wanted to share some success stories of what HALO mine clearance does, and not just leave everyone with a sad picture. Now you can see the difference between the before and after. The before picture, the land looks barren, and the after picture, there's a tractor, there's agriculture coming, it's a productive use of the land. Now this was taken in a minefield in Delagarda, Martuni region. We cleared land there in 2010, and before HALO clearance, there had been 3 mine accidents, all from farmers who had tried to plow the land. After HALO clearance, farmers are expecting to harvest 2 tons of wheat per year, which at the current wheat prices, it's going to yield something close to 18,000. So we're not a development organization, but we are empowering local Karabaghis to pick themselves up from their bootstraps and continue on with life. You cannot have that without clearing mines and making that land available. And this other photo, again, shows the before and after of what our mine clearance work does. In the top photo, you see the explosion, that's a mine or a cluster bomb being destroyed. There's the danger mine sign. And the photo below it, you see the same area, however, farmers are now using that land. Now, this is in Hadrut region, and the area was a very large vineyard before the war. However, because it was really close to the front lines, it had a lot of remnants of war. There were a lot of unexploded ordnance on it, and when people tried to use it, there, of course, were accidents. Now, HALO has cleared 23 acres there, and we found 5 AT anti-tank fuses and 113 items of stray ammunition, which were all, explosive. And one of my favorite stories, actually, is of Sierra Leone here, the individual pictured above. And this was also clearance done in Vaxconnection village in 2010. Now, before the accident, before HALO clearance, there had been 4 accidents in this region. And after HALO cleared this land, the farmer there was able to cultivate the land. They were able to build a canal which serves 7 farmers in the area. And the yield of this land is going to be about 7 tons of maize per year. That's his share of the yield. It's going to be about 7 tons of maize per year. So again, that just goes to speak to the local empowerment that our work is able to fulfill. Now, speaking of the cluster strikes, this photo shows, again, Vaxconnection village. And there was a cluster strike attack carried out on this village. So there were 65 families, and they left after the war. When they came back, they were finding cluster bombs in their garden, cluster bombs by their house, which children play outside, families play outside, you garden outside, you live in this community. So essentially life was kind of stopped in that area because of just the danger. However, HALO finished clearance there, and we found 36 cluster munitions. So those are 36 lives potentially that were saved. And last but not least, the lady pictured above is holding a photo of her husband, Amir Sarkisian, who had a landmine accident in 2001. He shredded on the landmine and he passed away from his injuries. Now, the area around their land is a canal that was mined during the war, and after HALO clearance, in just 3 hectares, so it's a relatively small area of land in 3 hectares, we found 120 anti-personnel landmines. So it's a very dense minefield, and HALO clearance has returned the land back to 7 families who can now rehabilitate that canal and continue on with life. So I just wanted to leave you with those stories, tell you about the situation that we're facing in Karabagh today and the effects that we've had. So if you have any questions about our presentation, we can